That was cute.
Yeah.
Paul's assistant knows more than I do. He's talking about isthmus and planets and dinosaurs. I'm like, what the heck? It makes me look well, it makes me look dumb now, but it makes me look like I was a dumb kid. I carried about like sticks and mud, like dirt. I was into dirt. Like this is like entertainment for me was hours of digging a hole with a spoon.
But you were around the time that they actually invented math, so what else did you have to play with?
Right. Yeah. I was around for the invention of dirt. That was
wow. I gotta guess you're at least 15 years younger than me.
I'm 50. I'm 50 even.
Oh, okay. I was 60. I'm 60, so you're 10 years.
Oh, you're a youthful 60.
Thank you.
You got great skin, man.
For being out in the sun all the time.
Yeah, right.
I found out that if I put my light in front of me for the Zoom calls, my head doesn't look as skinny as pointy. You can see there's actually a little bit of hair there.
Yeah, this time of day, the problem is the sun shines and we get a forehead reflection. I gotta be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just need to black it out like the football players under their eyes.
Yeah.
I look like I'm out in the jungle hunting down leopards or something. Keith's got his camo on. All right, Haley, are we waiting for other people to join us?
Yeah, they're slowly trickling in with the registration.
All right.
I'll just give it a couple minutes.
Give it a couple more minutes.
I have plenty of time, so.
All right.
We fill time with recipes.
The missing link is Raj.
Well, I did brats in the air fryer last night. That turned out pretty good.
I gotta say something, Ken. The last name there is perfect for someone who does pen tests.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
He said the last name is perfect for pen testing, Romer.
Romer.
We have some people in process, Haley.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I was telling Ken we had something happen this morning. I had two people in two different geographic locations talking to two separate people at the same customer, and both of our guys lost internet at the same time. Two different carriers. I was like, oh my gosh.
A rather large outage in the Kakana area yesterday. But from actually this morning, from about midnight to about 3 or so.
That's not that far away from me, Bruce.
No, it's right in your backyard.
Yeah.
Well, if it happened in Kakana, Wisconsin's going to suffer from lack of pizza and lack of sauerkraut. Those are the big.
Well, the orders all got put through, so we're good.
Because Kakana, I always
how goes
think
it?
of sauerkraut processing in Kakana.
Who is that guy?
You scared him. Well, you scared him. He went into hiding.
Mr. Smithers.
John, Obi-Wan Kajan.
Oh, yeah, I got an Obi-Wan.
Yeah, you got to put on your Obi-Wan Kenobi hood.
Here we go.
Yeah. Nice.
Obi-Wan
Kenobi. All knowing. Yeah. It's awesome.
I am your father.
I never forget one of the worst smells I ever had in my life was in Kakana. Not that I produced, but that I experienced. It was an extremely wet year in that part of Wisconsin, and the farmers couldn't get out to harvest cabbages, and the cabbages all rotted in the fields. You want to talk about a holy stink. Wow, it was amazing. It was slightly worse than when that happened up in Grand Forks with sugar beets. That's also that smells like the dirtiest shoes you could ever think of. Sugar beets smell like dirty shoes, but there must be a lot of sulfur in because the whole area, the whole region, like it just smelled like sulfur. It was because people don't realize how much cabbage is actually growing in that part of Wisconsin. It's amazing how much cabbage is growing there.
Mike, is your background from The Office? I thought it was familiar.
That's funny.
Only a select few would notice that.
Big fan over here.
Wow.
And I never watched the show.
My background is a statement on my life.
You're bored?
Distressed wood.
Okay.
We gotta be careful. We can't work blue on the Powerlunch. Hopefully our young editing professional will know to edit that one out.
Yeah, we might have to tell him about that.
All right. We good to go, or we still got a couple coming in?
Nope, you're good to go. Ken has
right.
permission, so he can do whatever he needs to.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Today we have Mr. Ken Romer here with ITMS to talk about penetration testing and vulnerability testing and go through some of the differences. You know, if you look up penetration testing in a dictionary, there's a picture of Ken Romer there. So hopefully we'll have some good banter shared back and forth, some good questions, and Ken will share some good. I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting to me is that it's a common thing to confuse penetration testing and vulnerability testing. So this will be a good session to kind of help people frame that in a little bit and get some understanding. So with that, we'll take her away, Ken.
All right. See, make sure I do this right. You have my screen?
Yep. Looks good.
All right. Today we're going to talk about penetration testing / vulnerability assessment. And a little background on me. I started my IT career in 1997 with a company called Computer Sciences Corporation out of Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And from there, I started as a help desk person and quickly got into the network department and was a network admin shortly thereafter. Worked there until 2000 and then started with a small company of about 50 people called Marlin Leasing in Mount Laurel, which now I believe is Marlin Business Services. And after a short time became the director of IT. So ITMS started in 2010, and in 2013 we went full time, but started ITMS because I had all those years of experience with what we call the defensive side of security and wanted to take that to what's called the offensive side of security. Take those many years of Sarbanes-Oxley audits, Federal Reserve Board audits because we owned a bank, and Utah banking audits, and apply that and help other people secure their networks a little bit more. So that's just a little bit about me, and let's see if I can do this right. Good. Okay. Vulnerability assessment or pen test. As Keith mentioned, those terms are quite interchangeable in a lot of cases, but they are very similar up to a point. And basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people find where their flaws might be before a bad actor would find them. Has anything been left open? For example, I had a client, they had a server exposed to the internet, which had remote code execution available on it. And I brought it to their attention and like, oh no, that server is in our test bed and it's not even on the internet. It's like, well, I can tell you the name of it. I can tell you its internal IP address. I can tell you everything about it. And sure enough, what happens is in the IT world, we're usually underfunded, overworked, and understaffed. And you open up something for someone to come in and fix something, test something, look at something, and you forget to close it. So it just sits there waiting for someone to happen to come by and see it. Big problem in the IT world is missing patches. I mean, people just don't patch like they should. And part of the problem is Microsoft has released patches that have totally crushed people's machines and brought them to their knees. So I do understand the reluctancy, but you really have to pay attention to what is the vulnerability and how bad is it, and do you need to patch it right away, or can you wait a couple days and see if the internet crashes because everybody else patched their stuff? But that's the number one problem. And a lot of times people are missing patches that are upwards of a year old. Things that were fixed a year ago are being exploited. And, another term I like to use is dormant software. And that could be software you bought to do some testing with, and you just decided not to buy it, but you never uninstalled it. It could be old software on your system that you were using, but you've since moved on to something else, and it's still just sitting there. And it's not getting updates, and it's developing vulnerabilities, and eventually it's going to get found. In addition to that, we find a lot of people using like old ciphers, like instead of 256-bit encryption, they're not using 64-bit, but they never uninstalled it. So someone that knows what they're doing can come in there and just say, oh, I just want to use that encryption and not the 256. And there's a lot of vulnerabilities associated with that, such as SSL. People still have versions of SSL2 on their systems, even though they're using the latest version TLS. And although there's no known, to my knowledge, exploit for SSL2 or 3 at this point, sooner or later there will be something developed because there's no updating to that software at all. That didn't work. Methods of testing. Again, both vulnerability and pen test at this point are kind of converging. You have your initial setup. What are you going to test? What IPs are you going to look at? Your test execution, that's when you're running your tools, and then you're collecting your data. And then once you have your vulnerability analysis and your data, you're going to compile all that data into the reporting aspect of it. Once you have the reporting done, you're passing that on to the client. A big problem, believe it or not, I've run into clients where year after year after year, they have the same problems showing up. So it's almost like they're just going through the motions of doing the testing, but not actually fixing anything. And that causes two problems. A lot of the testing we do is driven because the client is trying to get a new client on their own. But if they ask for the last 3 years of your pen test or vulnerability assessment work, and they see the same thing on there year after year, they're going to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. The same thing with auditors. If they notice that, they're going to come in and say, I want to see your mitigation plan. And you need to be able to produce that even for those clients. Like, yeah, we had these problems. This is what we did to fix it, and be able to give that documentation. And there's two ways to look at this. You have your internal and external. Vulnerability assessments are highly external. And what we're just doing is we're looking for any problems that may exist on the endpoints of your internet connections, your web server, your email servers. Is there anything there that needs to be fixed? Then you can also take a look at the inside. And this gets back, a lot of people, about 80% of the people are doing fairly well on the outside, but it falls off once you come past a firewall. And there's this thought out there that, oh, I got a firewall, I'm safe. But they're not always getting in through your internet access or your web server. They may be getting in through phishing, spear phishing. Really big right now is RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. And that's because it's so simple to set up, and it comes with Microsoft. So most people can just, oh, I just throw up a RDP terminal server connection and I'm good to go. Well, yeah, you can connect, but you're also in a situation where you're going to have a lot of vulnerabilities and a lot of weak links in there. So, and then once you're behind the firewall, patching comes into effect again. People just aren't doing their patching like they should. And they feel, well, I'm behind the firewall, I'm safe. No, people can get in. What kind of tools are out there? There's an OS system out there called Kali Linux. It's put out by Offensive Security, and it's got about every single tool you could imagine in there. Now, in theory, the product is designed for security testing, but it's just as effective for exploitation because you have different things in there. Some of them would be like Wireshark. If someone were, were to get into your network and be able to launch Wireshark behind your firewall, they could track your traffic. The leasing company I worked at the time, we had a server that did all the leasing financials, everything, and it all ran on Telnet, which sounds great behind the firewall, but once somebody gets past that, I mean, Telnet's all in clear text, so they're seeing usernames and passwords and everything go by. And there's other products out there. And if you get high-end people logging into things, then you can see, well, they're probably using the same password maybe on their desktop, for their administrative account, things of that nature. Nmap is another product that's been around for forever. That's great at mapping out the internal network. You can scan for services, operating systems, open ports, and it'll bring all that data in and make a nice little plan of action where you can attack. Metasploit, we'll have a little demo of Metasploit a little bit later, but that's been around for a long time, and that's still maintained by Rapid7. It used to be independent, but they purchased it quite a few years ago. And that capability in Metasploit, which we'll do the demo with, you can pretty much get into anything. If it's got a vulnerability, somebody's written a plugin for that. So you'll be able to just punch in a couple commands and boom, you're in. John the Ripper and Cain and Abel, they are both password crackers, and they do many different things. John the Ripper, I think it was John the Ripper, years and years ago, when I was with the leasing company, we were upgrading our VPN equipment. And I had created this real cryptic long password. And of course, didn't write it down because I didn't think I was ever going to need it again. But as we're changing out the equipment, I had no idea what it was. So it was either change 250 some user connections or come up with a way to break the password. Well, fortunately with John the Ripper, they were able to go in, drop that in there in a very brief period of time. It decrypted my password, which was a little scary because anybody who had a copy of our profile could have done the same exact thing. This is a screen I always like to show. On the left-hand side, basically passwords. If any one of these passwords are remotely similar to yours or somebody you know, you need to get rid of them. And there's a lot of people out there that are using. These are the top 25, I think, of 2019, and it's pretty much the same for 2020. The number 2 password is still just plain old lowercase password. Now, when it comes to passwords, I've always been a big proponent of the length of the password, more so than necessarily the complexity, the large complexity. So you can see if we're using a password that's numbers only, up to about 13 characters, you're pretty much instantly broken into. And then you can see letters, lowercase letters can be a little bit longer. But even on the numbers only, if you had 18 characters, you're looking at 9 months. People aren't going to invest that much time in trying to break your 18-character password unless someone's targeting you like a nation state or something like that. And if you look across the number 8 characters, the de facto number for most organizations still, you can see all the way up to numbers in lowercase letters, only an hour. Even complexity, 8 hours. If someone's after you, they'll invest 8 hours in trying to get in and crack your password. But if you make it a little bit longer, you can see how that just exponentially goes up, 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 until you're into like quadrillion years. If you have 18 characters and numbers, lowercase symbols. And people say, well, nobody's going to remember a long password. Now, if you're just looking at length, it could be anything. You could do something like, this old man, he played knick-knack on my thumb, and you have a very long password that you're not going to forget. And it will be relatively very secure. Talk a little bit about pen testing. This is where we're going to kind of diverge. They still have a lot of similarities, but pen testing has many different levels, and there's probably even sub-levels between these. But just to make it simple, you have what I call full disclosure. You're going to give the pen tester name of the company, IP blocks, email addresses, anything that you think they may want to test or would help them in their testing. Then there's a limited background. Maybe they just get your IP blocks and some email addresses or something like that. And then no background, totally in the dark. That's where, and you can see on the graphic on the right kind of explains full disclosure, it's going to be less expensive. Medium disclosure, going to be a little bit more expensive, and no disclosure other than this is the name of our company, see what you can do. Another thing that's going to affect your cost is how much time are you giving them to do this? Are you giving them 2 weeks? Are you saying take 4 months? 2 weeks, let me know how much you found, and if you didn't find anything, weren't able to get in, end the test, or just go until you figure it out. And to give you an idea, on the low end, a low end pen test might be about $25,000. The medium one, say 35,000. All depends on the number and how much man hours are required. And then the upper end can be as high as the limit. Depends on the size of the company. Depends on how much time you want them to invest in trying to break in. I'm always a big believer, if someone's got enough time and money, they will break into you. I mean, if they've got the desire, the time and the effort and the money, eventually they will get in. Somebody's going to click on that bad link. Somebody's going to open that bad attachment. It's inevitable. Our goals. The goal of the pen test is actually to breach your network, to break in, get inside as though I was a hacker, and then acquire certain levels of access. Were they able to acquire admin access, root access? Were they only able to get on a couple desktops, not really migrate around your, make any lateral movements to your office? And you would need to have proof of your hack in the sense that you have documents you took off their systems or artifacts that you left behind so that you can prove you were actually there. And of course, you're going to want to document all your steps. Make sure everything's written down and you can show the client, these are the steps we did. This is how we got, this is where we were. These are the artifacts we left behind, or these are the documents we took off. And we're going to continue on this topic. The other goals. Basically, you want to find the vulnerabilities before the bad guys come in and start exploiting them. Were they able to get through your firewall? Real simple. Were they turned away? Did they make a dent in it? It can help catch gaps in your compliance. Are you compliant by HIPAA standards, payment card industry standards? Looking for things that might be a problem to those organizations. I know with HIPAA, if you can show that you're doing a level of testing and you're doing some due diligence, you're still going to get fined if you have a disclosure problem, but it's not going to be as bad as somebody that's doing nothing. Because when they come in and say, let me see what you're doing. Oh, we don't have anything. We don't have any computer policies. We don't have anything like that. Another interesting aspect is if you're doing it somewhat in the dark, did the IT team, internal IT team, notice anything was going on? Did they see anything happening behind the scenes? And this can be very helpful. If they did, what steps did they take to mitigate it? Did they find the problem? Did they fix it? Excuse me. Did they move the closure down? And it gives you a sense of what a real world attack might do to your organization. Like if someone comes in and does a pen test and they're able to get in and they're able to get on your servers and they're able to get admin access or root access, then that gives you an idea of what they could do. They could encrypt everything, they could steal everything, they could pretty much do whatever they wanted. And it gives them a remediation guidance. These are the problems that we find. These are the things that you're going to need to close up. These are the suggestions for closing them. And we deal in general concepts most of the time, where you're going to need to do these types of things. Do you have computer policies in place that people follow? No, we don't. Well, you're going to need to have those. All right, I got a short little demo here, if everything works, that I'd like to show you what actually a pen tester might do, or even a hacker might do. So I'm going to have to share this out. Where's my sharing? Oh, up here. Stop share. Okay. Share screen. I think it's this one. Yeah. All right, and this is going to be an example with Metasploit. It's a product that's commonly used out there in testing, but also commonly used from the bad guy's perspective. And it's pretty comprehensive in what it does and how it does it. So we're going to start out here. The screen on my right-hand side is the Kali Linux box with Metasploit on it. And the one on the left-hand side is another box inside my test environment. The IP address on the, let me start this video again. The IP address on this one ends in .130. And then if we look at this guy over here, it's going to end in .28. So just confirm that we're actually on different machines. And I'm talking faster than my demo is going. So just do an if config. And there we go. So you can see this is two different machines. Now this could be someone that's broken into your network and they're trying to move laterally, or it could be across the internet. So if something's exposed to the internet, this product Metasploit will work just fine and they'll be able to get in. Or if they've gotten in somewhere else, they're actually going to be able to start move laterally around your network if there's flaws behind there and missing patches. What we're going to use is a Samba exploit. And if you're not familiar with Samba, it's a protocol, product, and application that allows Windows machines and Unix-based machines such as Linux to use each other's shared folders across the network so they can see each other. And these are the actual steps that you would actually punch in. I hope everybody can see this because sometimes it doesn't come out clear. So the first thing we did is we put our exploit in. Then we want to load a payload. Okay, what's the payload? Well, in this case, it could be anything, but in this case, we're going to open what's called a reverse shell. We want to actually be able to have a terminal on that remote machine on our machine. But we could just as easily be loading ransomware into the system at this point. Now we have to set our remote host, which is the 192.168.74.130. And then we're going to have to set the port that we want to use. And Windows sharers and Samba, they use port 445. So we have to tell it, where do we want to go? What port do we want to use when we get there? And then lastly, we have to tell it where we're coming from. Who's the local host? And that's going to be the 192.168.74.128, the machine that this Kali Linux is actually on. And then that's all you really have to put in for this particular exploit. And any of these Metasploit exploits, that's about all the steps that you need to do, which is doing the right ones. And then we just type in an exploit and off it goes. And you know, sometimes it doesn't look like it's done anything. But if you look there, you can see command shell session 1 open. So there is actually a shell open on this computer. So we're going to cd to the etc directory because that's where all the security is. And then we'll do an ls. And I dumped a folder on there called ZZZ KCR. And then we'll go back to our other machine and we'll do another ls just to make sure that that is actually there. And there it is, ZZZ. So we quasi at this point have confirmed that we're on the victim machine from the attacking machine. But one more thing I'd like to do, just to confirm that for everybody, is we'll go back to the attacking machine and we'll try and make a directory in the etc folder. So we're going to make it and ZZZ just to make it easy to find. Enter. Now, were we actually able to create that? That's the question. Of course, it's going to be, the answer is going to be yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be showing the demo. So we're going to go back and we'll do our ls on the victim machine. And it should show up. And there it is. You can see, so we're actually creating folders on the victim machine, just as an example, so that you know we're actually on that system. And like I said, this could be done across the internet. It could be done internally to start making lateral moves. Why I chose the Etsy directory, it's specifically because in there are quite a few bits of information, but importantly, there's a file called PASSWD, and then there's a file called shadow. And with both those files, I can copy those files out. Both those files, I can run that against a password cracker offline, like Cain and Abel or John the Ripper, and just burn away at a password dictionary as fast as I can. And eventually, I'm probably going to come across some passwords. Not everybody is going to have a strong enough or unique password. And then you can just start doing whatever you want to the systems. Then you can probably assume that all these systems have the same root password, or maybe not, but maybe they have the same flaw and you can get on that system. I can create user accounts and stuff, but then that sometimes can get noticed. If you create a user account on a system, you know, somebody might notice like, hey, there's a new account out there with root access. But if you're just using the existing ones, it's much easier to get away with it. All right, that's going to be the end of my presentation today. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I actually do. Anybody else can jump in first if you want. I don't want to monopolize time.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hey, Ken, so a lot of times, you know, we advocate setting up firewall rules for outgoing. How helpful is that? Or is that, yeah, question is how
I think it's helpful. Anything you can do to make yourself more secure. But once someone gets behind your firewall and they're exfiltrating data, they're probably going to send it out on HTTPS. So it's your internal systems are just going to say, well, here's web traffic going out to a secure server, and you might not even notice it. Now, if you notice lots and lots of data going out over that's unusual, that can be helpful.
Okay, thanks.
So if someone, let's just say someone procures you to do a test, I assume they get a packet, some kind of a document, some kind of information, that a summary of everything you did and results and those types of things, some guidance as to what you found and what they should do to remediate.
Yeah, basically when the test is over, you should get a document that shows these are the things that we found. These are why they're a problem necessarily. And these are what you need to do to fix it. And again, we don't really recommend any equipment directly. We work with a lot of MSPs like Paul and NetV Pro. So we don't install anything and we don't fix anything. We're just a reporting person.
Well, with that said, I mean, from a pen testing perspective, I'll just say geography doesn't matter, right? I mean,
No.
so I'm in Minnesota. If I wanted to work with you, you can do that from remote, right? You don't need to.
Yeah, it's all pretty much done across the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like any hacker would be, unless it's an internal threat, but just like any hacker would do. Example of a hack down in here recently was a water plant that was broken into, and they tried to up the lie into the water supply that would have killed a lot of people.
Which is frightening when you think about it.
Fortunately, somebody was standing there or sitting at the desk and noticed it going on and was able to stop it. And secondary, they supposedly have tools in place that would have stopped it, but that's not necessarily true, because if you look at what happened to the Iranian centrifuges, Stuxnet, that hack, they got into their systems, which wasn't even connected to the internet. And once they got in, they started spinning them out of control and breaking them, but they also set up a system where it was reporting everything was normal. They had no idea. So there's no reason that couldn't happen with a water plant, you know, a drinking water plant, that somebody couldn't figure out how to like make everything look normal when it's not.
Stop scaring us, Ken.
Yeah, until it's too late.
Another question I have is, so if I'm an IT director and I've implemented some policies that have to do with password strength, etc., and and I want to have an assessment. I mean, will your vulnerability work let us or let me know, you know, give an assessment of password strength that we have in place? Can you see those types of things? Do you have tools to let us know where we're at with that?
It certainly is possible. We could copy out the hashes to the passwords and then try and break them against known dictionaries. You know, and some might break real easy, fast, and others might not. But you can put controls in place, usually in most systems, where it's got to be so long, it's got to be complex, or things of that nature. NIST when I say recently, in the last 2 years, I think, retreated on the need to change a password every 90 days. They said the more important part is to have a really good password, not necessarily change it every 90 days.
Okay.
That way, people tend to remember their passwords.
Right.
Right. Constantly resetting.
Right. Yeah, I personally advocate for longer passwords that might be a phrase with some special characters and stuff in it.
I hear all the time people like, go to 10 character passwords and you have much stronger password. Well, people can't remember 8. How are they going to remember 10? Well, have them do their 8 character password, put one number and one special character at the end or end and beginning, and now you have 10 characters. You've just increased the security exponentially.
Right.
And it's something easy for them to remember.
Right. Right. Very good. Any other questions? No other questions. And I don't think, Haley, we don't have the Wheel of Death today, or do we?
Yes, we have a gift certificate, I believe, Haley.
Nice. All right. Wheel of Death. Are we ready? Are we ready to do that? Haley, do you have the Wheel of Joy and Happiness? Sorry, I got all carried away there for a minute.
Yep. Are you ready?
All right, hit it.
Of course.
Ken's gonna be a busy guy.
That's funny.
Well, congratulations, Roz. It's been a little bit of a dry spell, but there you go, bud.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right.
All right.
Very good.
If somebody from NetVPro can send me his email, I'll work on getting that certificate out.
Yep, we can do that for sure. Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. It was good to see you. Thank you very much, Ken. I love the live demos, man. That's awesome to see it happening, and I mean, it really kind of helps bring stuff home, and helps put an exclamation point on the end of the sentence. So
yeah, it really, when you see how simple it can be for these people, and Metasploit is an old program. They have point and click stuff out there now. You can hire people as a service that just provides like ransomware as a service. You don't even need to know how to do anything. It'll be all done for you. They maintain the software. They just get a piece of the action.
I love it. It's hacking as a service.
Yeah.
God bless America. All right. Very good. Well, thank you. It's good to see everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks with another Power Lunch. Thank you.